Ladies and gentlemen, in this RedGamingTech.com video we have further news regarding Don Mattrick's departure from, of course, Microsoft. It appears that Julie Larson-Green is going to be heading up the Xbox Studios, or should I say more specifically, Microsoft's hardware division as a whole, which of course does include the Xbox One. So these reports come to us from Bloomberg, and they've been basically citing an unnamed source within the company and have said that basically that Larson-Green would oversee the hardware engineering across the entire board at Microsoft. Now, in case you guys haven't heard, and you probably have by now, Don Mattrick has left Microsoft. Now, there are a couple of conflicting reports. One is that he left on his own accord, and he basically felt it was the best option for his career. Other people believe that that's actually not the case, and he was actually fired, which of course also happened to Adam Orff. Now, Adam Orff was a former creative director at Xbox, and you may remember him better as the deal with it guy regarding the ability to play offline with the Xbox One, where he was arguing, of course, online with that. Ironically enough, Don Mattrick himself has just been as, shall we go with controversial as head, and has argued and even told people to basically not buy an Xbox One if you have a poor internet connection. So, as I've said, Julie Larson-Green is going to be the person who it appears is going to be taking over the running of the hardware division. Now, who is Julie Larson-Green? Well, she herself has been with Microsoft for about 20 years, and she started working in '97 on the Microsoft Office team. So, her roots are mostly in software. For example, she, back in '93, joined Microsoft as a program manager for Visual C++, which of course is a programming language, and she also led UI design for Office XP, Office 2003, and even 2007. She also led the charge in a lot of ways towards Windows 8, and we know just how Windows 8 has been received. Now, it's a very interesting decision for Microsoft to go this way. In one respect, however, it does make sense because obviously they want themselves to be focusing heavily on, and I quote, devices and services. Now, we know just how Xbox One has started to pan out. We know that Microsoft are, yes, pushing very hard in regards to the service-based future of the Xbox One. And it'll be very interesting to see if Julie continues the same traditions as Don Mattrick. Now, I'm sure many would agree that she can't really piss off people as well as Don could. I think there is a special talent for that, because honestly speaking, it was getting to the point where there were memes of him coming out on the internet. And there's one of two ways to look at having memes of yourself. One, you're doing something really, really, really right. For example, you know, the very photogenic rocker and stuff like that, you know. And those are positive memes, and then you get the Don Mattrick memes, which are basically not so much positive for you or your company. So obviously when you're starting to have yourself painted in such a light, that's never a good sign. Regardless, there are a couple of concerns I have with her decision. Now, obviously she does have a lot of experience, so I'm not questioning her UI experience, I'm not questioning her software engineering experience, I'm not even questioning her hardware experience. That's all fine, that's all dandy. But one concern that I definitely do have is, much like Don himself, although obviously Don came from a very different background, and as I said, it's not like he did nothing positive for the company. Definitely in terms of sheer numbers, he did grow the Xbox brand. But it's also not very difficult to see that his focus wasn't on games. Now, Julie herself, we're not really sure where her allegiances lie in terms of gaming. However, obviously she is mostly a UI expert, and some people have heavily criticized the direction of Windows UI because, well, I'll just be frank, it just doesn't really work well with a Windows desktop, and of course most people want to start button back, particularly long-time PC users. And even in the server environments, for example, it just was a pain in the butt, Server 2012. That's not to say that, once again, there were no positive improvements on the 8 architecture, but overall, in some ways, it was definitely a step backwards. However, it's very interesting that they've gone with her. Obviously, it's not formally announced yet, but it seems like she's a good candidate at the very least, rather than going with, say, one of the Phils. Now, Phil Spencer himself, for example, well, he is the corporate vice president of Microsoft's Game Studios, so obviously those guys are responsible for building a lot of Microsoft's first-party game titles, and so he would have been a fairly obvious choice, but I guess it depends on the direction she takes with the company, so it's still very, very early days yet. I would like to see some more... I would definitely like to see the focus shift towards more on gaming and so forth. Obviously, in terms of the UI and so forth, it would definitely be a good thing. But it's worth noting that she's not exactly just going to be focusing primarily and solely, should I say, on the Xbox brand. It'll certainly be very interesting to see if there is a decision made differently, if Microsoft continue to do something a little bit differently, or whether it's going to be much the same as it has been previously, and games are just part of the larger service rather than the focus on the larger service. That's not to say, of course, Microsoft haven't got some good games in the works. They definitely have, but I'm sure many would agree that that's not just their sole focus anymore, and it seems to be over many different services rather than just focusing on games, as much at least as what Sony are. Anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed the video. It's been a fairly brief one, but I will see you soon. Take care, and bye for now.